Hey everyone, I'm Mia.
And I'm Leo.
Welcome back to the English Blend.
We're the place where we talk about real-life English, helpful tips, and just keeping things simple.
Exactly. So grab your coffee, maybe a notebook, and let's talk about something really important today.
Something that everyone struggles with, right?
Absolutely. Today's title is How to Stay Consistent in Learning.
It's the biggest question we get. People start strong in January or September, and then by week 3, they're gone. The momentum just stops.
Oh, I know that feeling so well. It's like running a marathon, but you sprint the first mile, and then you're too tired to finish the race.
That's a great analogy. Consistency is not about sprinting. It's about slow, steady walking every single day.
We need to figure out how to make English study a habit, not a huge, scary task.
Exactly. So let's dive right into it. Why do people lose consistency? I think it usually comes down to setting the wrong goals.
I agree. Many learners, especially A2 and B1 level learners, focus too much on perfection, which links directly to focusing too much on accuracy.
That's a huge distinction we need to make today. Fluency versus accuracy.
Leo, can you break down what we mean by those two words simply? Because they sound academic, but they're actually very practical.
Sure, accuracy is how correct your grammar is. Are you using the perfect tense correctly? Is your preposition flawless? Are you worried about the tiny mistakes?
It's the difference between saying, I went to the store yesterday and I go to store yesterday. Accuracy focuses on correcting that go to went and adding the.
Precisely. Now, fluency is different. Fluency means you can communicate smoothly. It means you can keep the conversation going without long pauses.
Fluency is communication, not perfection. That's our key takeaway for today.
If I say, I go to store yesterday, and the person understands me and replies, I was fluent, even if I wasn't accurate. I got the message across.
And this is where consistency dies, right? Because students spend hours trying to achieve 100% accuracy, and it's exhausting.
It is exhausting. They sit down for 1 hour, look at a difficult grammar rule, like the past perfect continuous, and they feel overwhelmed. They think, I can't even remember this tiny rule. How can I ever speak?
And because they feel defeated after one hard grammar session, they skip the next 3 days of studying. That's where consistency vanishes.
They are equating consistency with perfect study hours, and that's a trap. Your study doesn't have to be perfect, it just has to happen.
So let's talk about the big block. Why does grammar block fluency?
It creates something we call the internal editor, that little voice inside your head that critiques every word before it leaves your mouth.
Oh, the internal editor is the worst. It's the voice that says, wait, was that supposed to be in or on the table? Stop talking. Rephrase the whole sentence.
Exactly. And while you're busy checking the tense, the person you are talking to has finished their coffee and is waiting for you to say something. You freeze up.
It happens in the simplest situations too, like ordering a sandwich at a cafe. You know the words, but you are so worried about perfect structure that you hesitate.
You know, it's funny because native speakers make small grammar errors all the time, especially in fast speech, but they are fluent because they prioritize getting the point across.
Speaking of getting the point across, that's a fantastic phrase for our listeners today.
Yes, let's highlight that. The phrase is, to get your point across.
This means to successfully communicate your idea or message, even if the language isn't perfect.
If you order a coffee and you say, I want coffee black, please, they understand you got your point across. You were successful.
If you are in a business meeting and you share a good idea, even if you use the wrong preposition, you got your point across. The idea landed.
We need to train ourselves to aim for getting the point across first and perfect grammar second. That builds confidence, and confidence is the fuel for consistency.
So if accuracy is slowing you down, you stop being consistent. If you aim for communication, you get wins, and those wins motivate you to show up tomorrow.
Let's look at a short story that illustrates this idea of fluency over accuracy, even culturally.
Perfect. I love a good story.
This is a cultural note about English learners in places like Scandinavia or the Netherlands. Often, they start speaking English very early in school, and they hear a lot of English media. They have high exposure, right? Massive listening. We often talk about that.
Yes, but the interesting part is their attitude. When they speak, they're very confident and willing to take risks. They might make lots of errors, but they just power through.
They don't have that internal editor voice shutting them down. They learn that communication is the goal.
Right. They realize that making a mistake is just part of the process, like falling when you learn to ride a bike. You don't stop riding the bike forever just because you fell once.
And culturally, the acceptance of good enough communication rather than demanding academic perfection allows them to be consistent. They speak daily because it feels less threatening.
That willingness to make mistakes is key to consistent practice. If you only practice when you feel you can be perfect, you will never practice.
Never. So the consistency block is often emotional, fear of error, rather than technical, not knowing the grammar.
Now that we've established that fluency is the goal and mistakes are okay, let's talk practical tips. How do we actually make ourselves study every day, even for just a few minutes?
Yes, let's get into the structure. We need to focus on low effort, high impact strategies. Tip number 1, and this is crucial for consistency, the tiny habits approach.
I love tiny habits. We're talking about something super small, right? Not an hour of studying prepositions.
Absolutely not. A tiny habit is so small that it feels stupid to skip it. For English, this could be, I will listen to 1 minute of an English Blend podcast while brushing my teeth.
Or, I will look up one new English word right after I make my morning coffee.
The goal here is not learning a lot of English that day. The goal is reinforcing the habit of showing up.
If you make the task too big, I must write 3 pages in English, you will skip it when you are tired. If the task is just 60 seconds, you never skip it.
And once you finish that tiny 60-second task, often you think, well, I'm here now. Maybe I'll listen to another 5 minutes. But the pressure is off.
It's the consistent repetition of the action that matters, the consistency of the routine, not the massive amount of content.
This is how consistency builds over weeks and months. A minute every day is 365 minutes a year, which is infinitely better than 0 minutes because you felt overwhelmed.
Let's move to tip number 2, which helps overcome that fear of the internal editor. Let's call it the 3-second rule for speaking.
Ooh, I like this. Explain the 3-second rule, Mia.
When someone asks you a question in English, or you have an opportunity to speak, you must start talking within 3 seconds.
Wow, 3 seconds is very fast.
It is. But that's the point. If you take longer than 3 seconds, the internal editor wakes up. You start worrying about grammar, and then you freeze.
So the rule forces you to choose fluency over accuracy immediately. It compels you to get your point across before you can critique the perfect verb form.
Imagine you are at work and your boss asks, "What's the status of Project X?" If you pause for 10 seconds thinking about whether to use is complete or has been completed, you sound uncertain.
But if you immediately say, it almost done, we meeting tomorrow for final check, you are communicating effectively and quickly. You respected the 3-second rule.
The message is clear, and the consistency in applying this rule means that slowly you train your brain to just speak rather than analyze.
It's practice in action. It builds muscle memory for communication. The more you do it, the easier it becomes, and that ease leads to consistency.
And here is a common struggle that links to the 3-second rule: hitting a wall.
That's another great phrase we should explain.
When you hit a wall, it means you reach a point in your progress where you can't seem to move forward. You feel stuck, you know?
Like you've been studying for 6 months, but suddenly your speaking feels messy or you can't remember new words. You feel like giving up, and that kills consistency.
Everyone hits a wall, even native speakers learning a new professional skill. It's a normal part of the learning curve.
When you hit a wall, you might feel like your consistent effort has been useless, but that feeling is usually a sign that your brain is reorganizing information.
So how does the 3-second rule help when you hit a wall?
It forces you to simplify. When you hit a wall, you might try to speak too perfectly. The rule says, just use the language you know right now, quickly. It brings you back to basic, successful communication.
That makes perfect sense. Simplicity is key to pushing through that wall.
Tip number 3 for consistency, focus on chunks, not grammar rules.
This is massive listening applied directly to speaking.
Exactly. Instead of learning the rule for the past simple tense, learn common, useful chunks.
For example, instead of focusing on the abstract rule of subject plus verb to, you memorize the chunk, I ran out of time, or that sounds amazing, or what are you up to?
These are pre-made phrases that native speakers use all the time. When you use a chunk, you don't have to pause to build the sentence grammatically. You just deploy the chunk.
It's like having small prefabricated houses you can assemble instantly rather than having to design and cut every single piece of wood yourself.
That speeds up your speaking and makes you feel successful, which encourages you to continue practicing consistently. You see instant results.
Think about it. If you try to remember the rule for phrasal verbs, it's complicated. But if you just memorize the chunk, I need to look up that word, you are already speaking correctly and fluently.
The brain prefers patterns or chunks over abstract rules, especially when under pressure in a real conversation.
So your consistent practice should involve collecting and reusing chunks. Don't spend 20 minutes memorizing a complicated grammar chart. Spend 20 minutes listening to a dialogue and noting down 5 useful short phrases.
That type of low-stress, useful practice is much easier to be consistent with. It feels less like homework and more like gathering useful tools.
We need to make consistency fun, right? Or at least low effort.
Let's talk about tip number 4, related to dealing with the inevitable failures. We need to adjust our mindset when we skip a day.
Because let's be real, you will skip a day. Life happens.
You had a terrible day at work, or you had to pick up your kids, or you just felt sick. You missed your 60-second tiny habit.
The danger here is the all-or-nothing mentality. You think, I missed Monday, so my whole week is ruined, so I'll start again next month.
That is the #1 killer of consistency. We need a better phrase for this scenario.
How about, it's not the end of the world?
Perfect. Let's define that for our listeners. When we say it's not the end of the world, we mean it's not a major catastrophe. The situation is manageable and recoverable.
If you miss one day of studying English, it's not the end of the world. You didn't lose everything you learned.
If you use the wrong tense when ordering food at a restaurant, it's not the end of the world. You still got your food.
If you realize you have hit a wall in your progress and everything feels hard, remember, it's not the end of the world. Take a small break, go back to tiny habits, and keep going.
This mindset is vital for long-term consistency. It allows for imperfection in your schedule.
You're forgiving yourself. Consistency doesn't mean perfection. Consistency means restarting quickly after a setback.
If you miss Monday, you do the tiny habit on Tuesday. You don't wait until the following Monday.
That quick restart is the definition of true consistency in practice. It shows resilience.
Let's elaborate on how these tips work together in a real-life study week.
Imagine Monday morning. You set a tiny habit. Listen to a short English song while making breakfast. That's 4 minutes. Success!
Tuesday, you have a work call. You decide to apply the 3-second rule. Instead of overanalyzing, you say, I agree with your suggestion. Immediately, you use a chunk. Success.
Wednesday, you feel tired and overwhelmed. You hit a wall. You skip your listening.
But you remember, it's not the end of the world. Thursday morning, you look up one phrase, a chunk, and put it on a sticky note. You restart the tiny habit.
You didn't let one skipped day derail your entire week, which is what usually happens when people lack consistency.
It's the small wins that accumulate. And remember, the goal of consistency is fluency, not accuracy. We are training for quick communication.
Let's recap the main ideas and focus one more time on the core consistency boosters.
First, redefine success. Success is getting your point across, not speaking perfectly. Aim for communication first.
Second, beat the internal editor by starting small.
Use the tiny habits approach. Make the task so small you can't skip it. Focus on the consistent action.
Third, when you have the chance to speak, apply the 3-second rule. Speak quickly to force fluency and bypass your grammar editor.
Fourth, study chunks and phrases, not just isolated grammar rules. Chunks give you pre-made language tools that speed up your communication.
And finally, when setbacks happen, remember the idioms. If you feel stuck, you might hit a wall, but know that it's not the end of the world.
Just restart quickly. Don't let one missed day become a missed month.
This idea applies to all learning, not just English. Whether you are learning a new language, a new skill for work, or even a new sport, consistency is the silent engine.
Absolutely. It's like tending a small garden. You don't need to spend 8 hours ripping out weeds every day. You need 10 minutes of gentle watering every single day. That's consistency.
Great metaphor. Small, gentle effort over time yields big results.
Thank you so much for joining us for this crucial discussion on consistency. We hope these tips help you keep showing up for your English learning.
We believe in you. Just aim for communication and the accuracy will follow naturally over time. Keep practicing those tiny habits.
We'll be back next time to talk about the secret power of mass listening. You won't want to miss how much English you can learn just by listening to music and podcasts.
That was a great talk.
Yes. See you in the next episode of The English Blend.